Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sweet Spot. Today it is my just incredible pleasure to welcome Marianne Williamson, a best-selling author and an amazing mentor for so many of us around the world. Welcome, Marianne.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Well, you've got a new book out called Tears to Triumph. I have it here. It was my bedtime companion last night. So tell me, Marianne, what was the reason and the purpose and your soul's calling for this book?
Well, I think one of the things that has really impacted me over the last few years is how many people are on antidepressants who are not bipolar or who are not schizophrenic, but who are simply going through a rough patch of life.
Yeah,
It's medicalized despair. I don't know if you're going through that in Australia the way we are in the United States. Uh,
absolutely.
it's particularly distressing because the FDA, our Food and Drug Administration, has warned that for people 25 years old and younger, suicidal ideation is actually increased, not decreased, with the use of antidepressants. And we've all been told this story, about brain chemistry, and the pharmaceutical industry is kind of absconded with the word depression. Like, we're not allowed to use it anymore. We can use sadness, but depression is a chemical imbalance. But I don't know anybody who's been prescribed an antidepressant who had their brain chemistry checked first.
Yeah,
Diagnosis of depression is a questionnaire. And as far as brain chemical changes, meditation changes brain chemistry, neurotransmitters, neurocircuitry, etc. We all go through difficult times in life. Spiritually, these are called the dark nights of the soul.
yeah,
You lost someone that you loved, or you went through a painful divorce or breakup, or the diagnosis of a disease, or a child in trouble, or professional failure. These are part of life. They're not mental illnesses. And the idea that we're to avoid them is psychologically unsound, because I know in my life and in the lives of so many people that I know, these are the times when I feel I learned some of the most important lessons in my life.
yeah.
We are not conscious, whole, mature people if we don't have a capacity to navigate the turbulent waters of tough times in life. And I just feel we need to challenge this story. Particularly, I'm a mother. I have a daughter in my mid-20s. I just see these young people. It's really disturbing.
Yes,
Um, Now, there's, I saw this post about recommending screening for depression. Once again, it's a questionnaire for women who are pregnant and postpartum. Well, a woman's hormones are all over the place if she's pregnant. A woman's hormones are all over the place if she's postpartum. You're going to add antidepressants to this? I just feel like, what are we doing? And I have to tell you something. When I just made a post about that on Facebook, you should see the pushback I get. And people are saying, I'm stigmatizing mental health. I'm not stigmatizing mental illness. Mental illness exists. But what's happening today is people are pathologizing normal human suffering. And there is a spectrum of normal human suffering. Haven't you had some sad times in your life?
absolutely. And they go on for a long period of time.
Sometimes they do.
Sometimes. Yeah,
And the body has an immune system, and the psyche has an immune system as well. And that's what grief is. And if you have 45 tears to cry, crying 17 tears is not enough. So what's fascinating to me and what I talk about in the book is, if you look at Buddhism, Buddha said life is suffering. If you
yeah,
look at the task of Moses, it was that he was sent by God to deliver the Israelites from their suffering as slaves.
yeah.
Jesus suffered on the cross. The great spiritual transmissions speak to the issue of human suffering. So, in a way, our over-secularized society is a culture of depression, because it doesn't foster a deeper spiritual understanding of who we are as spirit and who we are in relation to something bigger than ourselves, and thus who we are to each other and who we are on the earth and who we are to any sense of mission. So we shouldn't be surprised that people are depressed. But what's happening, it's like the canaries in the coal mine are dying,
Mm,
and the mine owner is saying that there's something wrong with the canaries.
mm.
We're depressed for a reason. We're depressed because we have leached all sense of spiritual purpose out of our existence on this planet. That's why we're
I
depressed.
really liked your analogy of that in the book. Our audience is actually a lot of mothers, and I can imagine that a lot of mothers see their children and they're concerned about them, and they see these warning signs, like you say, the canary going down. And What would you say to them, Marianne?
Well,
They see those early warning signs and then they may go to the doctor and then the doctor suggests, but, what would you say?
Well, I think this is an extremely, extremely important issue because 25 years old and younger,
Mm.
suicidal ideation is increased, not decreased. And a lot of parents are taking their kids to
Mm.
see a therapist one time, and this therapist says the kid's bipolar and puts them on antidepressants, which is the worst thing with bipolar, or puts them on antidepressants anyway. It's called adolescence. It's hard. It's
Yeah.
called being in your 20s. It's hard. And the answer is a certain level of attention and a certain level of parental involvement and societal involvement. This idea of, people say, well, I'm seeing the warning signs, quote unquote warning signs. If you're seeing warning signs in a teenager or a young person of any kind of suicidal ideation, the last thing you should do is put them on antidepressants. That's the last thing we should do. And anybody can read about this and see. This is the story this is the story. And that's when you ask, why am I writing the book? We have got to have a counter narrative to that.
Yeah.
It's the whole idea of warning signs. Our kids are depressed. How about changing the culture? How about looking at all of the ways that are all the factors that are contributing to this deep epidemic of sadness? But over medication, particularly of our children, is just as dangerous. And when people say it's keeping people from suicide, there are a lot of medical voices out there who are asking the opposite question, and that is, was there any connection to antidepressant use and suicide in certain cases? There are a lot of very, very serious questions.
Yeah, I have read a lot of articles that have questioned,
Yes.
once the person has gone
So
on to.
they're just, and it's like you're not even supposed to question it. And
Yeah.
this is a lot, you and I are old enough to know that we left behind a long time ago this idea that whatever the doctor says.
Mm.
So why are we doing that on this issue? Whatever the doctor says, we left that a long time ago.
It was a paradigm of our parents, really, wasn't it?
Exactly. I thought we broke that one. I thought
Yeah.
we smashed that bottle. Now, and especially when you see some of the doctors that are putting young people, particularly on antidepressants, who are not therapists, who are not psychiatrists.
Right.
People just go to therapy, how you doing, or to a doctor, how you doing, it's been rough, well, and they take out their prescription pad.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
also don't understand so many people who are so concerned about gluten, so concerned about any kind of chemical in their gut.
Yep.
This is a chemical in your brain. Why is this any less disturbing to you?
Yep.
Also, they're highly addictive.
Yep.
Highly addictive. And also, I do want to say here, Kim, we are not in any way suggesting that someone who is on an antidepressant throw it away.
Sure.
That's dangerous. Because getting off them, because they're so highly addictive, etc., getting off them must be done under medical supervision. So please, let's make sure we make that as a huge caveat here.
Yeah.
We must be much more sober and much more reflective as a society about getting on them, but we need to be equally sober and reflective and under medical supervision getting off them.
Absolutely. And even before we get to the point of, having prescribed medication, a lot of my friends and a lot of the people, at the sweet spot already feel like they're almost at breaking point. Working mothers who, have children, have demands, have partners, careers, the whole thing. And it's not necessarily, that going to the doctor and getting antidepressants is the answer. But how would you suggest, Marianne, that, your everyday woman, steers clear and finds the time for spirit and for, for everything that you have mentioned in the book, for the time for the tears to flow so that, that general melancholy or sadness for life isn't there on a day-to-day basis?
Well, my entire career is based on a, a, a deepening of our understanding about spiritual connection.
Yeah.
If you meditate in the morning, our culture is a culture of distraction. People wake up in the morning, you go immediately to the cell phone, immediately to the internet, immediately
to the coffee pot.
Force, exactly. And although the coffee pot, I don't know, I go for the coffee pot myself, so I don't know where to go on the coffee pot. If you take a shower in the morning, it's because you don't want to take yesterday's dirt with you into the day. But if you don't meditate in the morning, and you don't pray, and you don't send love, to pray for this everyday woman you're talking about. I'm an everyday woman. You're an everyday woman. Who's not an everyday woman?
Yeah.
When you meditate in the morning, you literally have more time because time itself is relevant. So the more superficial our thought forms, the faster time goes. So if you have time to brush your teeth, you have time to meditate. If you have time to take a shower or a bath, you have time to meditate. The greatest gift you can give your children, even your little ones. People say, well, I have little ones. Children can be started very, very young, knowing we're going to spend a few minutes in quiet with God.
Mm.
That's the greatest gift you can give your child. Shh, we're talking. We're with God now. Little children, and I know this as a mother, they don't know all the, theology there. They don't know all the meditative techniques there, but a child can understand, okay, we're going to be really quiet because we're with God now. I mean, that's the greatest gift you can give your child. You want to get this stuff in before the eye rolling years.
Yeah.
And you talk about this woman who has all this stuff to do. Well, did she take 5 minutes that morning and send your love to everybody who's going to be at work with you today? All your colleagues, all your associates, all your customers, your employer, your employee, all the people you know you're going to meet, all the people you don't know you're going to meet. Did you wake up this morning, pray for the happiness of your partner? Pray to be the best wife or the best lover or the best friend. These days we are fed unhappy thought forms. For instance, you go to a therapist and the therapist is, to talk about your relationship, and the therapist says, is the relationship really giving you everything you need? That's very common. Are all your needs being met in this relationship? Well, isn't it interesting that we're asked that rather than, do you feel you're giving everything you have to this relationship?
Yes.
When someone is unhappy, the first question the therapist should be asking is, let's talk about who you have not forgiven.
Mm.
Because anytime we have not forgiven someone, anytime we are not forgiving ourselves, we are thinking the thoughts that block miracles.
Yeah.
So when you bring a spiritual understanding into all this is not la-la. This is not, pour pink paint over everything. This is serious inner work. And, people say they don't have time for physical exercise. But after a certain age, it's not just cosmetic, it's our health.
Yes.
You have to do a level of physical exercise to keep the body healthy. Well, you have to do a certain amount of spiritual exercise to keep the mind and the heart healthy, the emotional body healthy. So I think we need to support each other in doing the work without which falling into depression is not only common but understandable.
Yeah, yeah. You've actually got a whole chapter in your book on forgiveness, and it's been something that, years ago with my ex-husband, I had years and years of, mental torture with him, and it was at this moment where I forgave him for everything, and I realized that actually all that was left was for me to love him again. I didn't have to stay with him. I didn't have, nothing, but I could just love him freely. And I speak to my friends and the people in my life about this amazing experience where I was set free when
That's right.
when I forgave him. And,
That's right.
as I say, you've got a whole chapter in the book on forgiveness. And I feel sometimes that I don't actually get my point across, like how important forgiveness is.
Well, what you said was eloquent and so true. You're on the hook as long as he was on the hook.
Yeah.
As long as you kept him on the hook of your thoughts about your focus on his guilt, your focus on his mistakes, your focus on the past, your anger at him, you could not have the miracle.
Right.
As the Course in Miracles says, the warden can't leave the prison any more than the prisoner can. And the only way for you to be free was to free him. On a spiritual level, we only get to keep what we give. And as long as I'm focusing on the guilt in someone else, I will feel guilty. And that's why the Course in Miracles says forgiveness, the generosity of forgiveness is an act of self-interest. So that's why it is in the book, because the book doesn't just talk about what we shouldn't do, this idea of buying so easily, this medical model for human despair. Human despair has been around for hundreds of thousands of years,
Right.
at least. And we didn't have a pharmaceutical industry to fix it for us.
Right.
Right? So, and people have been known that it's it's called the sacred journey. It's the hero's journey through that jungle of the subconscious mind. And that's why in the book, like you said, the book is not just about why are we doing that so easily? It's what we should do. And that's why forgiveness is the first part of the spiritual solution. What is the toolkit? So that we have other tools in our problem-solving repertoire. Forgiveness, seeing relationships as holy encounters and how to do that. And then, of course, in the book, I go into an understanding of what the transmission of Buddha has to say about human suffering, what the transmission of the Book of Exodus has to say about human suffering, and of course what the understanding of Christ has to do with the transcendence of human suffering.
Yeah.
So the spiritual transmissions are so rich with material that truly do give us an alternative to a medical model of human sadness.
Yeah, yeah. And when somebody's really stuck in their mind of, I will not forgive them, they've just done so much that's wrong, is that the time to pray for an answer, to pray for that miracle, and
Yes, you said it yourself, and you said it very, very well. At a certain point, there was nothing for you to do but love him. That didn't mean you had to go back and be with him. It didn't mean that you had to ever talk to him. It just meant that your heart was free. He is an innocent child of God, and I think one of the things in relationships particularly is I do believe that there are victims. They're called children. But in adult life, there are very few relationships. I mean, there's a tiny, tiny portion of the population where there's evil and all of that. But that's not what most of the people that you and I are talking about are going through. And one of the things that we find in relationship, and I don't know if you found it with your ex-husband, we come to a point we get, well, I had a little something to do with it too.
yeah,
And,
for sure.
right. And not only that, but that we learn from seeing where we were off and what our mistakes were and how we'll go forward from a better place. And so I think that from a Course in Miracles perspective, you ask God's help. I am willing to see this differently.
Yeah.
I am willing to see this differently. Because, these days everybody's so into the jargon, oh, he's narcissistic, or he's a love avoidant, or, we have so many labels to put on people to embellish on their guilt.
Yeah.
And of course, the ego mind only wants to talk, he's an avoidant, he's narcissistic, blah, 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 because the ego mind doesn't want to look at I'm unforgiving, or I'm controlling, or I'm judgmental, or I'm angry, right, or I'm demanding, right? And as this is why the spiritual path takes us into the darkness of our own realizations, and that's why they're painful. But if you don't see that about yourself, how are you going to change? How are you going to change in terms of other people to know next time I see those warning signs, I'm not going to go there? And how do you change in terms of I'm going to change on my own personality level so that I participate differently in relationships? Yeah. But this is an area where if you avoid the pain, you avoid the gain. So that's, once again, when you ask, why did I write the book? Because I know that I've learned so much from my tears. And what you learn from your suffering is how to live more responsibly so that you don't create more suffering.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to recreate those situations.
Yeah, that's right. And as I say, you've got that whole chapter on forgiveness, but you also have a really great one on relationships. And, so often, and you've just spoken into it, so often I hear, women say, oh, but he doesn't do this for me, or, he doesn't fulfill that for me. And as you say, it's not about what they can give to you, but rather what you can provide for them.
The Course in Miracles says only what you are not giving can be lacking in any situation. Mm-hmm. And when you ask yourself that, like, wow, what am I not giving? Because my ego only wants to talk about what he's not giving. Yeah. But what am I not giving? And then also, you see this, and I've seen it myself. We think, oh, I want him to change because I want us to be able to love each other. It's very sly, right?
Very sly. Yeah. We do so many tricky things, don't we, Marianne?
Yes.
So one of the things that I know a lot of our viewers are really interested in is feeling more connection with their families. And of course, this comes into the section of relationships. So it's not just with the, significant other, but definitely with our families as well. And so a mother who, is saying, I want more connection with my family, yet feels like they're giving everything. Do you have any advice for them?
Several years ago, I was in Florida, and I was a house guest with an Orthodox Jewish family. And because they're Orthodox, they're very strict about the Sabbath. And on Friday nights at sundown, that family, everything changes. All electronics off. The telephone is only used to communicate with someone about getting to Sabbath dinner or whatever. The car is only used for that purpose. No television, no computers, no anything. And I was there for a day or so before the Sabbath, and it's a very plugged-in family. Lots of teenagers,
Yep.
modern teenagers. And I thought to myself, what's this going to be like? Because this is a very modern family doing all kinds of modern things. And I also wondered about myself. Actually, really, I'm not even supposed to use my phone. How's it going to be? It was the most extraordinary thing, and I saw the purpose of Sabbath. Because from that time at sunset, the older kids were with the little kids. The older kids were talking to their grandparents. Because there was no electronics, it's unbelievable how much deeper the conversation gets. You notice this. I remember once when I was in Michigan, my daughter was a little girl, there was a big storm, and all the electricity went off. And, and then when it got dark, we lit candles. We were talking, and you know how those things are. Then all of a sudden the electricity comes on. You don't even realize how much you have on. And it was so jarring.
Yeah.
We don't even realize how jarring our environments are until they become silent for some reason. So our modern families do not spend enough time in silence. We do not spend enough time talking to one another. We allow there to be television during dinner. We allow there to be cell phones during dinner. We allow there people to answer the phone. Computers, and parents need to parent. And you have to get to these kids before the eye-rolling years. And that was the thing with that family that I saw. Those older teenagers, they just knew. They'd been raised this way.
Yeah.
They'd been raised that way. So there was no, why do we have to? If this had been introduced when they were 12 or 13, I could see where it would have been. But they just knew that that's what it was. It was so beautiful. And the 10 Commandments say, one, keep the Sabbath holy. That's what it's for. It's for us to recalibrate. And that's what that does in our lives too. Given that we're all so distracted with the cell phones, with the screen time, why are we surprised that families can't find each other? And now you see people putting little children in front of screens when they're babies. Yeah. I was at a restaurant, and there were around 5 adults, and there was this little baby still in a baby chair, high chair. And the baby had a little screen, pink screen. And I thought, this is so dangerous. This is when that child should be looking around the table, their little brains learning about picking up social clues and language. This is so counter to everything, the evolution of the human race over many, many thousands of years. What are we surprised at? Why are we surprised that people are so desensitized to other human beings? And then you expand that a few times, and we have things like invading countries that didn't even do anything to you. I know that this is not your karmic burden, but it's certainly ours in my country.
Yeah. Well, we're partners with you there. Anyway, it's really great, isn't it? That do you see a link between how much technology we do have and then the depression coming in in years to come? Do you see that link, Marianne?
Well, first of all, I'm not anti-technology, and I think that's some really wonderful.
We wouldn't be here
right now. I mean, this is extraordinary. Or I do my live streams, every Wednesday night, if anybody's interested. People all over the world. So the technology is like anything else in the material world. It's neither holy or unholy. It has to do with the purpose given it by the mind. So I'm not an anti-technology person, but it's like with everything else. Let's have some perspective here, guys. It's toxic to have TV on all the time. And it's toxic to have the computer on all the time. And I think there's a little bit here, going back to what you said about families. Parents have got to parent more. And also in our intimate relationships, you have to create a temple space where, like when I was a kid, I remember my friends' parents used to have a Friday night was date night. Or they go ballroom dancing, which is also very powerful, the recalibration of energies. People today tend their maintenance of their cars more than they tend the maintenance of their relationships.
Yeah.
And then they're surprised the relationship is not working. But we've squeezed out of our lifestyle, out of the hours of our day, some of the very most important things that we can do. Yeah. And that is talking to one another and learning from each other and listening. So I think that any kind of spiritual growth and course correction involves some lifestyle changes. And I think we should be willing to make those changes in our lives and in our marriages and our friendships and also with our children. And I think we need to retrieve. Do you have children?
Yeah.
Then as a mother, I think we need to retrieve the capacity to say, because I said so. Because I've been on because I've been on the planet a few more decades than you, and because I said so. Why do we have to meditate?
I'm with you there.
That's what I used to say to my daughter when she was little. I hate you, mommy. And I used to say to her, I don't care if you hate me now. I care if you're going to hate me when you go to therapy in 25 years. That's what I care about. And I think that some of the things you hate me for right now, you're going to honor me for in a few decades. I'll be patient for that.
That's beautiful. Maybe we're all actually so fearful of hearing those words from our children that we don't tend to come down on them when it's actually necessary.
Yes, absolutely. And yes.
Yeah. I know you. Sorry, excuse me. I know you've got a lot of prayers in your book to encourage us for different situations as well, and I wonder, obviously you wrote this book and it's been printed, and it's being released very shortly. Do you have any?
Now, actually,
Pardon?
people can pre-order it.
Great. So it's available for pre-order because that's how I got my copy. Um, the prayer for because we're all about busy working mums here at the Sweet Spot. So the prayer for a busy working mum, what would you say that is, Marianne?
Dear God, should we say a prayer?
Yes, please.
Okay. Dear God, my day is overwhelming to me. I have so much to do and so much to take care of. My house, my home, my work, my children, my husband, my partner, my friends, my parents. I know that you know, dear God, all my responsibilities, all my commitments. And I know that you know, dear God, how overwhelmed I feel. And so, dear God, I put all in your hands. I put in your hands my relationships, my children, my partner, my work, my body, my sorrows, my loves, and my fears. I pray only to be an aspect and a facet of love and blessing in the lives of all those that I know, all who I will meet today. I put in your hands all the things I need to do, all my feelings of overwhelm, and pray that your Spirit come upon me and upon my family and upon my life. That which is weak shall now be strong, that which is dark shall now be light, that which is stressed shall now be calm, that which is painful shall now be peaceful. I send my love before me, that I might be an instrument of your love this day. And so it is. We say, Amen.
Oh, amazing. Thank you.
You know, the subconscious mind has so much power that we're not using. So the subconscious knows how to arrange the day. You know, in any given fraction of an instant, you can read about this. Scientists say the eyeballs, the retina, all the stuff in the brain, there's an infinite amount of visual stimuli, and the brain selects what to notice. When you put your day in God's hands, you're not putting it in the hands of something outside yourself. You're putting it in the hands of that higher power, which you are part of. And your subconscious knows how to arrange the day so that you only go to what matters. And some things we let go and they will work better without our control. And our being peaceful, our being loving, holds the universe together, whether it has to do with the children, has to do with the relationship, has to do with work. When we ourselves, we think, well, if all the situations go a certain way, then I'll be peaceful. But really, if I can be peaceful, the situations will flow a different way.
Yes, yes. Perfect. Well, thank you very much for being with us today, Marianne. It's such a
Thank you.
pleasure to have read this book and many others of yours. So it's available on pre-order now.
Yes, yes.
And
Well, people can go to marianne.com, and I do a free live stream. People can
Wednesday
watch it
night,
anywhere. Yeah, well, it's Wednesday night my time. I guess it would be Thursday
Thursday
morning,
for us.
but the link is available for 72 hours. So,
Yeah.
and and so I hope that your listeners, if they're interested, your viewers will join my email list at marianne.com so I can let you know if I go to Australia anytime soon.
Oh my goodness. Well, we would love to see you down here.
Thank you. Thank you. Where are you in Australia?
I'm in Melbourne.
Ah, the cool city.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't say that around here, though.
Okay, I won't tell anybody.
Well, thank you so much, Marianne, for
Thank
spending time with us here today. And, I thank you so much and I wish you all the best with this new book. It's going to
And I
change
wish you
the
all the
lives
best.
of many people.
Thank you. And I wish the best to you and to all those moms that you serve.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Bye.
Bye.